So then there are two basic approaches to fitness. One of them is long duration, fairly steady state exercise. And the other one is saying, well, that takes a long time. And what if we just go much, much harder for much shorter? So there's this trade-off between duration and intensity. And the literature on this has heated up over the last couple of years. But it's interesting to me because the literature in general on sports physiology is full of really, really terrible science. There are a few good people out there doing very high quality research, but it's incredibly difficult to actually get any group of people to agree to be randomized to say, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, to stick with it for long enough to make a difference. You can't do it with athletes because they all think they're giving up some hidden edge from their secret formula. You can't give it with regular people because they let their gym memberships lapse every 6 weeks. And so the science has been basically pick a college football team that will go along with the program for a semester in the off season and see what happens. And so even very good scientists have trouble coming up with very good data. And then there are a lot of people who aren't very good scientists in the field. So there's a lot of junk out there. And then the good stuff comes with big caveats. So what I'm going to give you is basically personal opinion informed by a lot of science. So I don't know that I'm right, but I think I'm pretty close. And I think it works out as follows. I think that if you are looking at the pure health benefits, then I think being in shape gives you those no matter how you get there. And I think there are people who simply will stick with it far more if it's lower intensity, longer duration. There are people who will stick with it more if it's more challenging, higher intensity, shorter duration. And I think you pick whichever one works for that person, and God bless you, it's going to work beautifully. If, however, you want to go beyond that and said, I really like hiking, biking, skiing, all the kinds of things you really use your body for at a pretty high level, then I think the equation shifts. And I think that it seems almost certain to me that building a base is an incredibly important part of being fit in any kind of an endurance sport. And I actually think that life is an endurance sport. So I think that if you wanted to plan a strategy for your 60s and your 70s and your 80s and your 90s, that actually the deeper your base through those years, the better the quality of your life. Once you've got a good deep base, then I think intensity has an enormous role in producing much higher levels of fitness than you could get by just continuing long duration steady state exercise. And so that's where things like spin class, for instance, would come in if you're a cyclist. Any kind of interval training, which is really going into your red line zone judiciously. And it's very hard to hurt yourself doing this, so it's not a danger issue. It's a counterproductive, productive issue. And if you know what you're doing with intensity, I think you can get enormous benefits from it. And if you don't, I think it's quite easy to actually overtrain a little bit. And as you get older, to basically hit plateaus and feel like you're not making any further progress because you're not actually giving your body a chance to recover. So in the DVD and in the book, we talk a fair amount about the different kinds of exercise, but not on a very sophisticated level because we're aiming at a broad audience. But I think that if I were planning, I am planning actually my 70s and 80s and 90s. I'm hoping I'm right, but I've got the plan in mind. In my 80s, I'm hoping to do twice a week something in the 2-hour range, at least once a week something in the 4 to 6 hour range. I like biking and hiking, and those are great sports for that, at pretty low intensities, and probably once a month something in the all day, really drain the tanks range, riding a century, something like that. And I think that works clearly through your 80s, and depending on your individual physiology, maybe into your 90s. 90s is as you get older into the 80s and 90s, genetics play a role in how much of this you can do. Everybody can do more than we think, but there's a switchover.